Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited that you're here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Christine Reed, and I'm coming to you from Allen Hancock College. And I am the project director for this exciting endeavor that the Central Coast California community colleges, ranging from Moore Park all the way up to Santa Cruz with Cabrillo, are engaging in our alliance to bring resources for STEM students available throughout the 8 colleges that are participating. So I'm the project director, and I'm excited to have Tiffany Reardon here today. And I'll let Tiffany talk about you. Talked about herself and introduce herself, but I wanted to just welcome you to our C6, which is our Central Coast California Community College Collaborative that is joining forces to bring our resources to our STEM students at our 8 colleges. So Tiffany, I will turn the floor over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm actually really excited because this is the first time I've done this presentation, and I had a lot of fun creating it. And I hope it's of value. I think that the way that I've kind of organized it is really about selecting your transfer university. And so hopefully some of the things that we're going to talk about and learn might be new information. Some of it might be things that you've thought about. Regardless, I want this to be as interactive as possible. Well, at least as interactive as possible that Zoom permits. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to get that. So if you have any questions at all, or if you want to ask a question, you're more than welcome to ask a question. If you want to unmute yourself as well, but definitely want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered. And because we are recording, if you put it in the chat, I'll probably just repeat it just so we have folks that are watching it after. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's see. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Maybe just do a thumbs up or a yes.
I can see it, Tiffany.
Wonderful. All right. So today we're going to talk about selecting your transfer university. Here's why I had fun doing this presentation, because oftentimes, many of these talks are about, how to apply to the university. There's a little bit of that, but this is really selecting your transfer university. So as you think about these things, these are things that really, based on where you are in your transfer pathway, they might resonate a little bit differently. But again, I think at some point, all of these issues and topics and things to consider will be useful. All right, so before we get started, I always like to, whenever I hear a presentation, I like to know who I'm talking to, right? So just to kind of give you a sense of who I am and how I've, kind of been involved in doing what I do. This is my professional profile. So if you were to Google Tiffany Reardon, this is what you'd probably find out. You'd find out that I went to San Francisco State University. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, California native. I got my undergrad degree there, my grad degree there. And then after that, I started working at Skyline Community College. I love working with community college students. So in Skyline, I was working with students, helping them prepare to transfer to the 4-year. I ran the MESA program. And after 8 years of doing that, I started working at the MESA statewide office. And after doing that, I came to UC Berkeley, where I currently work. I work in Berkeley's College of Engineering, and I run the transfer pre-engineering program. So if any of you decide to come to Berkeley and study engineering or chemical engineering, hopefully you will do T-Prep and I'll get to meet you in person. Aside from that, I run REUFinder. So REUFinder is a website, and I also do presentations like this through REUFinder. So all of that stuff you can find online. However, I like to call this the true Hollywood story, because these are things that you probably wouldn't find if you were to Google me. One, I was a student parent. Two, I was a first generation college student. And, you know, I've been doing this for a long, long time, but I have to tell you that that experience of being a first generation college student, I believe, has helped me serve students better, because I think back as a first generation college student, there were a lot of things that I didn't know. And so I always like to, you know, try and make the messaging as clear as possible. I think when we're preparing for, you know, transferring to university or, you know, exploring things, there's a lot of things that aren't really clear. So I like to do that when I work with students. As a first generation college student, now I'm also a first generation professional. And guess what? There's a whole bunch of things that you learn as a first generation professional. And so a lot of the professional development opportunities that you can take advantage of as a student, I would say seize those opportunities. I actually don't have a STEM background. Believe it or not, I'm a sociologist. And I like to say that I'm a sociologist in a sea of STEM folks. I also think of myself as kind of an engineer by osmosis, because I've been working with community college students for so long. And I know a thing or two about community college students. So I'm really, really excited to be here today with you all and to work with you, because I work with students, I work with transfer students at UC Berkeley, but really I love working with all STEM transfer students. And I think it's really exciting this point. So I'm definitely not doing a commercial for Berkeley. You'll find out from my presentation that as you kind of select schools, there are a lot of things to consider. So I'm here today not to give you a, you know, commercial for Berkeley, but really to, you know, support you and give you some things to think about as you select your dream transfer school. And I put imposter syndrome no more at the bottom, because launching this project, the REUFinder, and kind of pursuing some of my side things, I had a lot of uncertainties, and I had a lot of like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if people don't like it? What if nobody visits my website? What if they don't think it's useful, right? All of those kind of little things that imposter syndrome kind of happens. So if you're a student that's maybe, you know, has experienced that, that's something that I can definitely relate to. And there's a lot of strategies that I've learned along the way that kind of help with that. Okay, so you've heard a lot about me. I'd like to hear about you. So who's here? So I see the names, so thank you for sharing those. And I see where you're from, but I'm interested in knowing what's your major. So if you can, in the chat, maybe just type your major that you're thinking of pursuing for your degree. So you can just type it in the chat. So it might not be listed here. I have just kind of some categories of majors, but so we have civil engineering, great, computer science, math, microbiology, mechatronics. And if you don't know what you want to major in, if you're undecided, a good way to express that is to simply say, I'm keeping my options open. But it sounds like a lot of you know what you want to do. We've got biological science, pre-med, computer science, electrical engineering with an interest in energy engineering. Very nice. So it sounds like you have some idea of what you want to study, which is amazing. And that's a really good starting point. So as I mentioned, for REUFinder, this is a place where you can find information about scholarships, about REU programs, REU, which is an acronym for research experience for undergrads. But I like to think of this website as a resources for all undergrads, all STEM undergrads. You can also find information about conferences and advice. So, you know, please feel free to utilize this resource because it is for you. On that subject, we are actually doing something that we've never done before. We're actually going to be doing a virtual summer research program showcase on December 1st. So pretty much what will happen is you'll be able to talk with people that are running summer research programs. If you have any questions about those programs, you'll be able to talk to them directly. It will be virtual. And I'm thinking that this will be something that will be very useful, particularly because there are a lot of conferences where you can perhaps meet people, but going to a conference, it takes time, it takes away from school. So, this is something that would be convenient. So you can just go on Zoom and meet folks. All right, we're here to talk about transferring. So for some of you that are on the call today, or for some of you that are watching this, you're at community college and you've decided, okay, I'm going to do, a few years at community college and I'm going to transfer straight to the university. Some of you, that's the plan, but maybe it's been a rocky road, right? Maybe it hasn't been very easy. Maybe there's been some bumps along the way, right? I mean, COVID. I think COVID was really, really not an ideal situation, and it definitely impacted a lot of our learning. It impacted a lot of our mental health, financial impacts that it's had. So maybe, your path to the university was not a smooth one, but nonetheless, you are transferring to university. Now, maybe, and this is not an uncommon thing, maybe you started off at a university. Maybe you started off at a university and it wasn't a good fit. Or maybe you started off in a university and it just wasn't a good time. And then you went to the community college, and with some bumps and twists and turns, now you're going back to the university. So that might be the case as well. So I mention this because I realize that, not every student has a linear path. And that is actually what I think is wonderful about working with students, right? There's no two students have the exact same path, maybe similar paths, of course, but all of you have unique and individual experiences. And I actually really love that. So I just want to kind of put that out there, that if you are someone that's like, yeah, I was at a university, but I, came back to community college, it could be for financial reasons, it could be for academic reasons, it could be a number of reasons. But this is your story, and own this story. Not only own this story, but be proud of the story. Because guess what? Regardless of whether you, had a clear path or you had some bumps along the way, you're transferring. You're transferring to a university, and you are on a road to success. And not only are you on a road to success, but you've got this wonderful, wonderful program that's here to help you. So thank you for sharing with me what you're majoring in. I'm going to ask you another question. Where do you want to go? So in the chat, if maybe you're like, I know exactly what school I want to go to, put that school. If you're like, I kind of have an idea of maybe where I want to go, put that in the chat. And if you're like, I have no clue, put that in the chat as well. So maybe the schools that you're interested in going to. So whatever college you're, maybe you know exactly where you want to go, kind of have an idea, no clue, not sure. Okay. I know I want to go to Berkeley, UCLA, UT Austin, Cal Poly. Okay. Anyone else? And in thinking, I kind of have an idea. My options are LA, Davis, and UCSB. And I love that you said you have options, because absolutely all of you have options, right? That's really good. Okay, so that actually really helps me as we kind of talk about exploration. So Cal Poly, UCSB, CSU Long Beach. Cal Poly most likely will also apply to a few other state colleges and a few others. So for the most part, most of you are applying to in-state schools. And I think we had one student that was looking at UT Austin. All right, so this is good. Okay, so we're gonna do a quick rundown of what we're gonna talk about. So here are some things to consider. So as you prepare to transfer, and I should ask, Lastly, when are you applying? So is there anybody who's applying like now, like this fall for next fall? Like anyone who's like, yeah, I'm going to be filling out the, CSU applications or the UC applications or the common applications. I'm going to be doing them this cycle. And if not, okay, good. So one person's applying right now, another person's applying right now, and then one person's applying next fall. Okay, this is great. This is wonderful. Okay, so for those of you that are applying right now, as you know, there is this kind of application period where you apply and then you wait, and then in the spring semester, you find out your offer of admission. It might be a wait list. You might get the offer right away. I don't think they generally do, at least for the CSUs, I don't think they do early admission. Oh, and someone says, I will apply once I get the course I need. Okay, that's good. Okay, so things to consider. So for those of you that are applying right now, it's even better that you're doing this now, because the major and the degree that you earn, right? Those are things to consider. The type of school, student life, financial support, and of course, your overall goals. So as you select schools to transfer to and to apply to, those are all things to research. Now, notice I didn't say the rankings, right? I know, a lot of, I read all the Reddit posts and I read all the social media posts about the rankings, right? The US News rankings, #1 school, best school, this and that, right? When we look at preparing, and I've worked with students for a long time, I would say the major and the degree earned, the type of school, the student life, the financial support, and your overall goals. That is what I believe you should be looking at, not the rankings, right? Those rankings, which, really are complicated, right? And there are also different rankings. So there is a lot of information out there that will, talk about the prestige of the school and the ranking. But really, what I'm concerned about is your overall academic experience and your overall goals. So with that in mind, the first thing to consider is, do they have your major? So do they have your major? So a couple students on here, I know one student said they were studying civil engineering. I know another student said microbiology. Another student said that they were pre-med. I believe another student said electrical engineering, computer science. Another student said mathematics. Another student said that they were interested specifically in energy engineering. So I would look and see, do they have your major? And if they do have your major, is the major called something else, right? So what is the major that you're applying to? And it might be called something different depending on the school. I would find out, as a transfer student, are you accepted directly into the major? If you are accepted directly into the major, or is this a scenario where you're accepted into the university, but then you have to declare the major? And when you declare the major, sometimes there is criteria. It might be a GPA. It might be certain classes that you need to take and earn a certain GPA. So I would look at that, because that's very, very important. The difference between getting admitted into a school and getting admitted directly into the major versus getting admitted into the university, but then of course having to worry about and think about, okay, am I going to get accepted into the major? In addition, I would see, are you able to change your major? Now, chances are, if you're accepted directly into the major, sometimes you cannot, although sometimes you can, but that's always good to know. I would also look at, what are the opportunities in your major? So opportunities in your major, and that will depend on the resources that the university has, or the proximity to other things. So let's say, for example, there's a student that's pre-med, right? So if you're a pre-med student, is your school next to, does your school, your transfer school, do they have a medical school? If not, is there a medical school nearby, right? You're pre-med. If you are interested in, there's somebody that said they were interested in energy, right? Are they near a lab? Are they near certain companies, right? So all of these things that lend themselves to opportunities in your major, I would start researching these things. So I know it sounds like a lot and you're thinking, oh, great. Like I'm just trying to work on my resumes, or not resume. I'm just trying to work on my essays. And I'm just trying to, work on my personal insight questions and getting my applications done. But as you research all of these things, I guarantee you'll actually have stronger applications, because you'll be able to tailor your applications to the schools that you're applying to. So major is very important. So, finding these out. Okay, so this is a good example. Nobody said Channel Islands, but this is a good example. So I picked this example because Channel Islands, for example, they offer degrees in biology. Now, one of which they offer as a Bachelor of Arts, and the other that's offered as a Bachelor of Science. Does anyone know the difference? What's the difference between a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science? And you feel free to take a stab. If you're like, I'm not sure, I don't know, but feel free to take a stab. What's the difference? Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. Anyone want to guess? Okay. So generally speaking, a Bachelor of Arts, yes, BA, a Bachelor of Arts relates to humanities, and a Bachelor of Science relates more to STEM. So in the case of a biology degree, right? Because a biology, as we know, is a STEM major. However, the degree requirements, probably the GE requirements. So there's probably more breadth requirements versus a STEM degree that might have more labs or more math. Now, we say STEM degree, however, there's a lot of business degrees, right? And certainly business isn't necessarily traditionally a STEM major. However, as you look at business programs, for example, you may notice that a lot of the business degrees are offered as Bachelor of Science. And they do have a pretty substantial number of math courses. Is one better than the other? What do you think? Is a BA better than a BS? What do you think? Is one better than the other? Anyone want to take a stab? Yes, depends on what you want to do with that degree. Depends on what you want to do with that degree. So I will say in the case of a major like computer science, for example, there are programs that offer computer science as Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts. But guess what? If you want to get a job at a tech company, they don't care. They just want to know that you know how to code. And I know that for a fact because I actually work with a lot of tech companies. So as you pursue these majors, really look at the Bachelor of Arts, the Bachelor of Science, not look at them in terms of like what's going to be more prestigious. Rather, look at them in terms of the course requirements, right? Maybe you want a broader range of topics. Maybe you like taking humanities classes, or maybe you're thinking, no, the more hard sciences, the better, right? So I just really wanted to point this out because you will likely encounter schools that do offer more than one degree in the different, same major, but more than one degree. Very, very important. Now, I'm very surprised that nobody asked, what about a GETSI, right? Very surprised. Your counselor can tell you, and this is why it is so important to meet with a counselor, because they can tell you, right? They can tell you if you're applying to one school and it's a Bachelor of Arts, or another school and it's a Bachelor of Science. They can tell you exactly what you need. And that is super, super important, because the last thing you want to do is have all your applications ready only to find out that you're missing something. So I cannot stress that enough. Meet with your counselor. Just as the last presentation I did was on office hours, same thing. Just meet with your counselor and do a check-in. Okay, here's another example. So college. So I work at a university, and it was very interesting. The first week when I got there, they kept saying the college, the college, the college. I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought, what are they talking about? The college, right? So in a university setting, when they say the college, they don't mean the bigger university. Basically, what they mean is the college, which is comprised of a bunch of different departments, right? So I've given UC Davis as an example. UC Davis has 4 colleges. They have the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. They have the College of Biological Sciences. They have the College of Engineering, and then they have the College of Letters and Sciences. So as you look at different schools, you want to look at what school, or sorry, what college your major is under, right? Because this is very important, because whatever the college requirements are, they might differ. So someone who is going to, in the example Davis, if they have requirements through the College of Biological Sciences, those requirements might be different from the College of Engineering. And I'm pointing this out because maybe you have a friend, right? Maybe you have a friend that has already transferred to another school, and maybe the college that they're in at that school is a different college than the one that you're applying to, right? So again, going back to what I just said, your counselor can tell you, right? Because the last thing I want is for you all to get misinformation, right? So the college, as you apply to these different schools, make sure you know, not only once you determine your major, but know which college that major is under. I also, being on a university, I also want to overemphasize the role of the departments, right? So we already said that a college is comprised of different departments. So somebody said that they were interested in civil engineering, right? So if you're in civil engineering, and whatever school you go to, it's very likely you'll be under the College of Engineering. If you are in, let's say somebody said they wanted to do computer engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, they might also be in the College of Engineering, but a different department. So the beauty of the departments are and we've all heard these stories, right? We've all heard these stories about, oh, it's really hard to get classes at the university, and it's very crowded. The departments are the one that schedule the classes. The departments are the ones that will open up seats. So knowing who your department is when you apply is paramount, right? Knowing who your department is when you accept your offer of admission is also paramount, because you can build connections with these people. They're kind of like your home within the university. So one thing about going to a university that you'll find is, whether it's a larger university, or even if it's a smaller university, having that department really is helpful, because you're really going straight to the source. So knowing, the school you're transferring to, your major, which college your major is under, and then finally, which department. I think that your departments also, how many of you are involved in clubs on your campus? And if you are involved in clubs, what are the clubs that you're involved in? So what are some clubs? Anyone involved in any clubs? No? Okay. Is anyone thinking of getting involved in any clubs when you transfer? If you are considering getting involved in any clubs, if you are considering any clubs, fun fact, a lot of these departments will fund your activities. So let's say, I'm going to pick on the civil engineering student again. Let's say that you're active in Steel Bridge Club, right? Steel Bridge competition team. It's very, very likely that the civil engineering department at your university will very likely fund activities for civil engineering students. So again, you want to connect with those departments. Beyond the classroom. So I'm putting beyond it. So I actually have the picture of the bowling alley because I figured I figured we'd have somebody on the call who is transferring to Cal Poly, and it turns out that we do. I believe Cal Poly has a bowling alley. Is that accurate? Do they still have a bowling alley? I thought that was the coolest thing when I visited there. But beyond the classroom, right? So what are things beyond the classroom? So I would say academic support, social activities, and the living situation. So these are things to consider beyond the classroom, because that's going to contribute to the holistic experience that you have as a transfer student. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, but I'm only going to be there for 2 years, right? However, remember that if you are, transferring to a university, sometimes you can get an extra semester. Sometimes you can get an extra semester for things like study abroad. Sometimes you can get an extra semester for if you change your major, if they allow you to, and things like that. Sometimes you might actually stay an extra year if you do a 5th year program. And a lot of schools will have these 5th year master's programs where you stay another year, or maybe you go there for grad school. So I tell you this because I really want you not to think of it as, oh, I'm only going to be there for 2 years, right? 2 years can go by very fast if you love it, and 2 years can go by very long if you don't love it. So I want you to love it. So these are things to think about. So support networks. Support networks are very, very important. So I'm talking about things like student services. So student services and support networks that you can connect with. Things like EOP, STEM centers, MESA programs, LSAMP program. It seems like this is actually, whether or not you know it, this is actually an LSAMP program that's benefiting you and you're being able to engage with. National Science Foundation programs, student organizations, STEM programs. So all of those programs will offer things like advice, maybe tutoring, assistance. Or yesterday, I was actually working with a student organization, and we actually fund conferences. So we work with students to provide funding for them to go to professional conferences. So these support networks, these are the support networks. These are people, their entire job is to help you navigate the university and help you succeed and discover what it is you want to do. So as you explore schools, look and see what types of support networks are there. For those of you that are applying to the CSUs, if you go to the CSU website, and I actually put a link at the very end, they actually have a really, really good directory of all the EOP programs. In addition, they also have it's really cool. They have like a way that you can filter down like what major you're applying to, what you're looking for in a school. Do you want to go to a school that's in a city? Do you want to go to a smaller school, right? Whatever the criteria is, and they can filter it and you can look and see what's out there. So, do you live on campus or do you live off campus? That's another thing to consider, right? So when we talk about on campus, that might be a dorm or family housing. So for those of you, I was a student parent, family housing is a thing. And when we talk about family housing, it's not simply if you have a child. Family housing could be if you have a spouse, or if you are taking care, if you're the primary caretaker for a family member. Now, let's say you are taking care of your grandmother. Let's say you're taking care of your mother. Let's say, you're taking care of your sibling, right? Some universities have family housing. They have family housing that you can stay at. And I'm sorry, there's some noise. Let me just hold on just 1 second. My apologies. 1 second. There's some noise going on. Can everyone hear that? Are you able to hear me okay? Are you all able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Tiffany.
good. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's really loud outside, some construction. At any rate, so there's things like dorms, family housing, also apartments. Some universities will have apartments that are for transfer students, right? So these are things to think about. I know that, in California, and it seems like most of you are going to in-state schools, the cost of living and, cost of rents in California is quite high. So I do want you to think about that early, so you don't have to wait until the last minute, and then of course, end up in a living situation that's not ideal. There's also something called co-ops. So co-ops sometimes are, they're generally not on campus, but they are close to campus. And co-ops generally, if you live in a co-op, they are not official university housing. However, there is some affiliation with the university, and they do offer a low cost option. But in return for that low cost option, usually you will have to, do chores or do something. It's kind of a working situation. I've known a lot of students that have lived in co-ops and they've enjoyed it. And finally, there might also be kind of student-friendly apartments, right? Maybe they don't have an official affiliation with the university, but they have a lot of students who perhaps are living there, and they rent to students. So these are good things to think about as you explore housing. Another thing to think about are learning communities. So for example, UC Santa Cruz. I don't think I had anyone mention that they're interested in UC Santa Cruz, but I'm using that as an example. So UC Santa Cruz has what they call colleges, right? So these are colleges that are academic learning communities that kind of enhance the learning experience. So this would be an opportunity for you to connect with other students, maybe that are in different majors, but you have this shared intellectual experience. I have an example here because of the audience, right? So I thought maybe this might be something that's of interest. So at UC Santa Cruz, they have Crown College, and their theme is science, technology, and society. So they explore the relationship of science and technology with the world around us. So that might be a cool experience, because if you think about it, all the folks that are on the call today, right? We have a variety of STEM majors, but there's probably a lot of things that overlap with each other. So if you're in a learning community, you can imagine that that would be a great opportunity to kind of explore. And as scientists and engineers, you're also going to work with other people. So having that kind of experience where you collaborate people on thoughts and ideas might really enhance your overall learning experience. So as you explore the different schools, look for learning communities. There's also themed housing. So themed housing is also another good option if you're living on campus. So some of these have learning communities or shared interest communities. Some of them are identity or interest based. So you might look into that as well. I've known students that have done the themed housing. Usually the themed housing will have a class that's connected with it. So you would look at the class and see if that's of interest, but that might be something as well to consider. Here's a really cool one that I saw, and I promise I am not trying to sell Davis. I just saw this and I thought it was really cool. But UC Davis actually has a first generation learning community. So I have the picture there, and it's run through EOP. And so if you're a first generation college student, you can perhaps live in this environment with other first generation college students. I've also seen transfer student housing and transfer themed housing, which is great. And I wish that more schools would do that as well. So that's something to consider. So what type of college? This is a big one as well. So is it a private college? Is it a research institution? And a good way to find out if it's a research institution would be check and see what the highest degree they offer. If they offer PhDs, then chances are it is a research institution. Is it a public school? Guess what? Fun fact. California community college students, you're transferring, you get priority over other students that are transferring from other public institutions. So if you're applying to a UC or a CSU and you are a community college transfer student, you get priority over somebody who's, let's say they're transferring, they want to transfer to Merced from Riverside, right? You would get the priority. Ivy League. Ivy Leagues are an option as well. The Ivy League schools are a great option because they have a lot of money. So if finances are a concern, an Ivy League school might be a good one. Liberal arts schools, that's another one that you might consider. Finally, and we love our acronyms, but HSI. So HSI stands for Hispanic Serving Institution. And I am pretty sure that some of the schools, Christine, Allen Hancock is an HSI, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So as a student in an HSI, you probably know this, but I just want to make sure. There are scholarships that you can apply for that are run through the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. So you can apply for internships, you can apply for scholarships, there's leadership training, there's a whole host of opportunities that you have access to as a student attending an HSI. So as you look at transfer schools, you might want to check and see if your school is designated an HSI. There's also HBCUs. HBCUs also offer a very, very specialized experience. Unfortunately, there are no HBCUs in California. Most of the HBCUs tend to be either in the South, in the Southeast, or on the East Coast. But I've had students that have gone to HBCUs. It's an amazing experience. And in addition to having that amazing experience, if you decide to go to an HBCU and come back, let's say to the West Coast, or come back to, another, like a UC school, they're actually for grad school. There are also some opportunities and grants specifically for HBCU students. Going to an HBCU is really something, if you decide to do an HBCU, there really, really is a sense of support. There's a sense of community, and student life is very, it's very, I mean, you can look at talk to someone who's attended an HBCU, and they will literally tell you that time in college has probably been one of the most meaningful times in their life. So I know a lot of colleagues that have gone to HBCUs and have loved them. So that's an option. There's also all these acronyms. There's also tribal colleges. Tribal colleges are also an option. And there's American Indian, Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institutions. Wow, that's a mouthful. But there's also those distinctions as well. And same thing, as a student from those schools, you are privy to those benefits. Even if you are not from those backgrounds, if you attend one of the schools that are there, then of course you would be privy to those experiences and services that are offered from those distinctions. Finally, in-state versus out-of-state. So in-state, I mean, we're pretty lucky. We have a lot of schools in California. We have the whole CSUs, we have the whole UCs. But let's say, for example, your dream has been to go on the East Coast, right? So if you look at out-of-state schools, you really want to factor in the cost. But maybe you're interested in going to a school in Oregon, right? And there are some schools that actually have agreements with California schools that are kind of a Western, I believe it's the Western Alliance, I forget the name of it, but you can pay in-state tuition. So those are really things to consider. And on that subject, money. Can you afford it? So scholarships and grants always apply to scholarships and grants, financial aid packages, loans. Really a secret that I don't think a lot of students know, and I actually didn't know this until I started working at a university. Once you get admitted, you can negotiate. You can negotiate in terms of finding out if there's any scholarships that you can apply for as a student. Certainly on the UC application at the end, there are the option to apply for scholarships. I would apply for every scholarship that you come across. And I think a good way to come across scholarships, any emails that are sent out, I'm sure, you know, the Mesa folks probably send a lot of scholarship information, the transfer center, you know, financial aid, right? Look at scholarships, look at grants, and apply to everything. Also, fun fact, anytime you see, you know, deadline extended, that's code for we didn't get enough applicants, right? So apply. You'd be very, very surprised at how many scholarship dollars go to waste because they don't get enough applicants. And the funding is earmarked for students. So you want to be sure to, you know, apply. Financial aid packages. If you are not sure what your financial aid package means, you should absolutely, when you're admitted, talk to the school. So let's say, for example, the school offers you funding. You would want to make sure that you understand the duration of the funding. I once had a student who got admitted into a private school and she did not understand, but that funding was for 1 year. And it was a great package, but it was for 1 year and it was not renewable. And what would have happened? She would have gone to that school and she would not have been able to afford, and she would have had to take out a lot of loans. Now, loans are not a bad thing, but there is a limit, right? There is a limit to the amount of loans. So really understanding those financial aid pieces are very important. And so as you negotiate schools, look at the type of funding that is offered, look at the scholarships that are offered, and just apply to everything. And guess what? All of you that are writing college admissions essays, you can easily convert those into scholarship applications. Okay, here's another example. Cal Poly has this learn by doing. So they're very much, it is a learn by doing kind of approach to learning. So there's hands-on learning in all of the classes versus a school like Berkeley, which is a more theoretical approach, right? Is one better than the other? It depends on what you're looking for. I know at Berkeley, there are hands-on opportunities. It's just that there are opportunities that you know, we have maker spaces and things like that. Whereas Cal Poly, which has obviously a lot of maker spaces, but it's kind of embedded in the curriculum. So that's also something to consider as you look at different schools. Is it a more theory? Is it very, you know, theory heavy, or is it more applied? All right. So I don't think this is news, but I just want to say it. Community college is amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing because you have had the opportunity to explore. You've had the opportunity to explore majors, to explore things that you enjoy, to explore different subjects, right? At a university, let's say, for example, you went, you know, straight to the university from high school. You might not have as much flexibility, right? So you've had that. That's wonderful. That's great. You've also had a pretty low cost tuition, or in some cases, free tuition. There's also the guaranteed admission factor. As you know, there are some guaranteed tag agreements, right? Where you can get admitted, directly into the school. So community college is wonderful. It's great before you transfer. But maybe you didn't know that community college is great even after you transfer. And here's why. I bet you a lot of you have thought about being tutors. Maybe you already are tutors. I will tell you that transfer students are amazing tutors. So if you're going to work on campus at your transfer school, I would absolutely 100% consider being a tutor. Here's the deal. Going to a community college, your classes are typically smaller. You probably have had a more closer connection with your faculty. And the learning experience, it hasn't been theoretical, right? It has been, pretty straightforward, right? Versus if you're going to a school that's more, theory heavy, chances are a lot of the students are like, I don't understand what my professor is saying, right? And so as someone who has come in, you're that bridge, right? You're really that bridge that can explain the material. I'm telling you, the best tutors that we have in the center that I work with are hands down transfer students. So if you're looking for, an opportunity to tutor as a community college transfer student, I say go for it. You also understand college, right? You understand college. You see that there's a lot of freshmen who maybe are, starting college for the first time. Maybe they kind of don't understand the study strategies that worked in high school, maybe will not work in college. You understand that, right? So that's another thing why I'm saying that community college is awesome. You have a GPA. You already have a GPA. You will walk into the university and you will already have a GPA, right? So don't forget, your GPA doesn't go anywhere. You still will have that GPA. And if you decide to go to grad school, you will simply combine that GPA. Your community college GPA, your university GPA, that will be your overall GPA. You will have letters of recommendation. Keep in contact with your professors that you have now, even after you transfer, because let's say you go on REUFinder and you find this great opportunity, right? You can always ask your community college professors for letters of recommendation. So community college is amazing. Finally, what is your dream job and or graduate school? Now, one of the students said, I forget who it was, that they were interested in pre-med, right? So it sounds like I'm assuming your dream job is to be a doctor and you want to go to medical school. So as you select your transfer university, I would look and see, can you go there for grad school? Do they accept the students for grad school? Some universities are like, we don't generally accept our own students. We want students from outside. Some other universities are like, absolutely, we want to keep them here. We want to accept our own students. And as you look at that and as you explore that, I would say that would be something to strongly consider. Recruitment opportunities. Maybe there's a dream company that you want to work for. Look and see. Maybe you want to work at Boeing, right? I know a lot of mechanical engineers are interested in Boeing. That seems to be a pretty popular place to work. Look and see, does Boeing recruit from that school? Do they have a history of hiring people from that school? Connections to the university. What connections do you have to that university? Maybe your professor, maybe your favorite physics professor went to a certain university. Talk to them about their experience. Be resourceful in talking to people. Whatever connections you have to that university and people, LinkedIn is also a great place to explore your dream job, right? I once had a student, he was a transfer student, and he came to UC Berkeley and he was trying to figure out where to go to grad school. And he really was just kind of like, I don't know where to begin. So we actually sat down and we looked at the companies he was interested in working for. He was a civil engineer with an environmental focus. And we looked at some of the companies he wanted to work for. And we actually went through all the bios and looked at the universities that they went to, right? And so that was really helpful. It's almost like being a detective in some ways. Finally, as promised, these are the links that I mentioned. So I really think that these, and it seems like most of you are applying to UCs or CSUs, but I think these are really good starting points that will give you kind of an overview of the different schools. So as I mentioned, the CSU link, if you want to filter it down to see if they have your major, and then kind of the overall structure of the campus. If you're interested in exploring the EOP, you can also find the link there. UC, looking at the different UC. Oh, and fun fact, I did notice, because I was like, I bet you somebody's going to ask me about IGETC. It has kind of a rundown of what IGETC is accepted at and what IGETC is not accepted at. But that does not mean you shouldn't go to visit your counselor. You should always go visit your counselor. But that's just kind of helpful to know as well. But it also has all of the links to the different UC campuses, so you can kind of get a sense of what they offer and see, what speaks to you. Lastly, the private schools. So the the independent colleges and universities, the AICCU, that's also a good place. So maybe you're thinking about Caltech, maybe you're thinking about USC, maybe you're thinking about University of San Diego, maybe you're thinking about University of the Pacific. You can find all of those schools here, and you'll get a good kind of overview of those schools as well, and what they have to offer. I went through a lot. Does anyone have any questions? I think there was a couple of questions in the chat. Let's see. I think there was one question. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. Maybe not. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? And I know I went through a lot. I'll share this presentation with Christine so she can share it. And then of course, the links and as well. But does anyone have any questions? Let's see. Oh, where is the link to register for the free REUFinder event? Oh, let me get that. I will get that. Sorry. While I'm doing that, is there any other questions? Oh, what else do you offer for those with additional needs in the College of Engineering? At Berkeley specifically, or just in general? I'm gonna put this in the chat right now. Oh, in general at Berkeley. So I should also mention, and this is actually a good point, DSP, which is Disabled Services and Programs, although it might be called something different at different schools, that is something that all universities, they have, differing offices and things like that. But if you're getting accommodations at your community college, I would say, and I've seen a lot of students that maybe don't utilize this, and then they say, oh, I should have done this. If you are getting accommodations at your school, maybe it's for test taking, maybe it's more time, maybe there's physical or things that you need support with. Absolutely 100% find out the resources that are available. It could be housing, It could be, you know, things like that. Don't wait. Like, you know, ask them, you know, as soon as you know, are just as soon as you are admitted, and as soon as you know, are kind of looking at where to go. I will tell you at UC Berkeley, specifically, we do have disabled student programs, and that is an office where they offer a variety of accommodations. So it really depends. I mean, I don't mean to sound vague, but we have a lot of different students with different needs, and it is our job to you know, support the students and to really help the students with whatever they need. So whether it's a reduced course load, which sometimes students do need to take a reduced course load, and if you do need a reduced course load, you know, you'll get extra time. I've had a lot of students that, you know, maybe they come to Berkeley and they think, oh, I don't need a reduced course load, I'll just, you know, I'll just take the full time. And then they find, actually, why make it hard on myself, right? So things like that. And then, of course, you know, any accommodations that you need, whether it's, you know, classroom accommodations or things like that, they have the resources to support you. And then you also work with an advisor as well. Other questions? Oh, good question. Very good question. So the question is, do university applications include financial plans, or is it once you're admitted? Wonderful question. It is once you're admitted. So once you're admitted, they will give you a financial aid package. Now, I will tell you that sometimes students will get their you know, financial aid package, and then they'll accept their offer of admission, and then they'll find, wait a minute, I got even more aid, right? Sometimes students will be contacted by the alumni associations, or they'll be contacted by something, you know, affiliated with the university. Maybe it's a program, or maybe it's, you know, something that has a financial piece attached to it. So it's really, really important that you always check your email, especially for those of you that are applying right now. Check your emails. You never know. A couple of years ago, and this happened like 2 years in a row, they actually extended the deadline for UC. So you can imagine, like, you're like, okay, November 30th is the deadline, and then you find out that actually it's not November 30th, they've extended it, right? So always, you know, those things I think are very important to check your emails, so you're just kind of kept up to date. But to answer your question, no, you typically, when you apply, you don't get your financial aid, because also what they look at, I'm not an expert on financial aid, but I do work with a lot of students in terms of, you know, figuring out their financial aid. And so the way that they calculate it is they calculate it on what is your cost of attendance, right? So how much is it going to cost for you to go to that school? And there are various factors. If you're an independent student, meaning that you are not claimed by your parents, if you're independent, then your student contribution will be like your income. If you are dependent and your, you know, parent guardian claims you on their taxes, and you're considered a dependent, then they will show the parent contribution and your contribution. And then that's how they'll calculate your aid. They'll also ask if you are living on campus or off campus, since that's a huge factor as well, right? So the cost of living on campus will be different from the cost of off campus, or on campus versus off campus. So all of those factors are how they come up with that number. What you can do is, if it's really, you know, a hardship, you can talk to, you know, your department, right? So remember how I said there's the colleges and there's departments. You can contact them and you can say, I really want to go to school here, but I can't. And here's why I can't. What can you do? If it's a private school, they probably have a lot of flexibility, right? And we've had students that, you know, have reached out and said, you know, we want to go to school here, but, you know, what can you help us out with? So those are things that that you can kind of, you know, just be resourceful and connect with people, right? I mean, they might say no, but then again, they might say yes, right? I had a student who was like, I don't have a computer. I need a computer. I don't have a laptop. We gave them a laptop, right? So there's different resources. You can also, when you're admitted, you can also do a cost of attendance adjustment as well. But the challenge with the cost of attendance adjustment is that you have to wait some time. But those are also things you can do as well. But the financial aid piece, I think, is really just about communicating with the financial aid office. If you have outside scholarships as well, they'll factor those into your cost of attendance. So it's your, you know, your estimated family contribution, the student contribution, your outside scholarships and awards, certainly your residency status, right? Are you an in-state student? Are you an out-of-state student? Are you an international student, right? All of those things they'll take into consideration. And then finally, grants and scholarships, what are the differences? So typically a scholarship is typically something that you apply to, although sometimes in some cases, you know, they might give you a scholarship and it might show up as scholarship, but typically a scholarship is something that you apply to. Grants are things that you don't have to pay back. Scholarships, same thing. Loans, obviously, you do have to pay back loans. Some of the loans you won't have to start paying until after you graduate, and some, you know, sooner. So that really depends. Work study is also another thing to consider. If you're eligible for work study, you can do that as well. But I would say just ask questions, you know, and as you talk to people, write down all your questions and, you know, contact the financial aid offices. I mean, they're there to help you. And remember, they want you to come to school there, right? So they're going to try and work with you, you know, as much as possible. Also, I would also say that, let's say, for example, for the most part, you're all in, I guess it's not considered SoCal. Would you say SoCal, NoCal? What would you say? Kind of both, right? Central Coast. Let's say you want to go to a school that is, you know, too far to drive, but you don't have the resources and you get admitted. You can ask them if they would be willing to pay for your transportation to come to the school. That's something that students sometimes don't realize. And so I would honestly say, finally, that in selecting a school, go to that school. Because going to the website, that's one of the challenges with COVID, right? Like we weren't able to have students visit. And so you did these virtual tours. Go to the school, see what it's like, see how it feels. And if you can't, you know, if you don't have the resources, let them know. Say, hey, I really want to come to the school, but I haven't had a chance to visit. I'd like to see it. What can you pay for my flight? Can you, you know, do you have like an overnight host program or something like that? A lot of schools do have overnight host programs. And I would start with the department, because the department sometimes will have those events. And then most of the schools in the spring, they'll have like an open house where they, you know, kind of host, and all the labs will be open, and, you know, and you can visit that way. That would be good. And then of course, if they have any outreach events, those are typically in the fall semester. If they have outreach events that you can go to, I would go to those as well. I'm pretty sure that the transfer centers at your community colleges probably have trips as well. So go on those trips and, you know, find out and see, you know, see what, if it changes your opinion of the school. Any other questions? anything that you did not know. This is the first time I've done this talk, so I'm kind of excited. Anything you didn't know that you were like, I didn't know that. See, if we were in person, I would probably like give a prize. It's hard to do on Zoom. I wasn't familiar with the learning communities. Okay. A lot about reaching out to college to work with them. Yes, yes. I always tell my students the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And remember, they want you to come to the school. If they've admitted you, they want you to come to the school. It's a whole, like, you'd be so surprised. The whole yielding, we call it yielding students. They want you to come to the school, so they'll work with you. So really, they'll work. You're the customer, right? They'll work with you. But the thing is, like, it's kind of like buying a car. You have to go in there knowing, right? Knowing what the options are. So if you know that there's a learning community, if you know that there's, these resources, they'll want you to go to school. If they've admitted you, they want you to come to school there. And I'm excited for you all. I hope that you, I hope you found this beneficial, and I hope it really kind of helps you tailor your applications and helps you with your decisions, because this is a huge decision, right? It's a good problem to have, but nonetheless, it is a big decision, right? It's a very big decision. And I would also add, maybe talk to each other about your experiences, because maybe you got admitted into a school that, has something that's not really what you're looking for. But then as you talk to a friend, you say, oh, this is exactly, my friend is actually interested in this. And, you can kind of crowdsource, right? You kind of crowdsource your information sharing, and that's always helpful as well. And pay it forward. Once you transfer, come back to your community college. Talk to the other students. Tell them, share your experience, share your expertise. That's really probably a very, very understated thing that really, really makes a huge difference. Oh, this is a good question. Once transferred to a university, is it possible to change universities? It is possible, but it is not easy. So I have known students that have the UCs. I can tell you for a fact, the UCs are very, very hard to change universities, because from the admissions perspective, they're looking at it as, okay, this person already has a slot at a school. For the private schools, it's a lot easier and more common, but for from transferring to one UC to another UC, it is not as it's not as easy. CSUs, the problem also is some of the CSUs are quarter system and some are semester. Same thing with the UCs. I think the majority of UCs are quarter, with the exception of Berkeley, and I always forget the other one. Is it Merced? I think just Berkeley and Merced are the only semester ones. So the classes might not articulate as well. But that's why, ideally, you wouldn't change. So that's why I'm saying, it's really important to have a, when you have your decision about where to transfer to, that you stick with that school, because it's not that easy to change. Also, some schools will offer admission in the spring, and some will offer it in the fall. Some schools will only offer it in the fall. That's something to also understand, because your timeline for applying might differ. For the UCs, I know you apply in obviously, February or November, but I have known students that have gotten accepted for spring. And so, so that's also something to consider. In engineering, at least at Berkeley, we don't admit students for spring admits, but I know the College of Letters and Sciences at Berkeley, they do admit transfer students for spring admits. So that's another thing to think about and consider. And then of course the CSUs, they have, winter quarter, spring quarter, they have, so that's something to think about as well. Ideally, you'll transfer in the fall. I always tell students, like really think about when you're applying, because in my experience of working with students, sometimes the reasons why they don't get in is just because they applied too early. I know sometimes students are in a rush to apply, but you want to make sure that you have all of the classes that you need. And I think working with your counselors, they can make sure that you have the classes you need. But 9 times out of 10, I would say that the reason why a student doesn't get in is just because they didn't fulfill all their requirements. Did anyone, anything that I'm really interested to hear, did anyone have any, I don't know, like, did it change not change where you want to go, but maybe change how you view the application process? Or any other questions? Very quiet group. Let's see, I'm going to run through these just to make sure. Oh yeah. I think I can figure out a sort of checklist. Yeah, I think a checklist would be really smart. I think it'd be very smart. Yeah, just a checklist of things, that you're looking for in a school. I mean, you're essentially shopping, right? You're shopping for schools, and those will help you to make the right decision. Because the thing is, you don't want to, I mean, you want to have a holistic view, right? And I think it's really, really missed opportunity that, and I see this on Reddit all the time, where students only look at those US News rankings and say, oh, well, this is a good school, or that's not a good school. But I mean, to be honest, there's so many other factors, right? And so, oh, good. It widen your view on transferring in a positive way. Yeah, absolutely. I think, remember, you're applying to an institution that's going to help you, develop your intellectual interest, to prepare for future careers. It's not a one size fits all, right? So each one of you has an individual plan. And so it is a little bit more complicated, but in a really exciting way. I mean, I think it's a good thing, right? It's a good problem to have. Well, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I always love connecting with students on LinkedIn. Hopefully, maybe some of you will, let me know where you decided to go. Those of you that are applying this this fall, as you get those offers of admission, you know, let me know where you decided to go. Maybe, you know, let me know where you decided to go. And then of course, you know, what factors, you know, influence your decision. I'd be really, really excited to hear that. Well, thank you. Thank you for, yeah, thank you for having me. This was really fun.